2 of the video. So you'll notice I'm not going the usual route. No. Basically, between me and home is that 4-way junction traffic light, which is a fucking ball ache no matter which way you look at it. And also the 494 is practically standstill because they've narrowed it to 1 lane only. So the queue to get on the 494 is massive. I mean, most people are going around it, but the amount of people still trying to use it beggars belief, because it's 1 lane. There's only 1 lane to exit at each junction up until where they're doing the work. It's a fucking mess, it really is. So I have opted to take the slightly longer route home, but in the grander scheme of things it's probably a lot better. Although, considering it's wet and this is like a country lane, I may not have been so wise. Dirt. Where's my leg wet? Oh, the fuck is the point in putting waterproof on if my leg's already wet? Anyway, topic, yes, part 2, woohoo! I'm going to talk a bit more in depth about the bonuses of having a camera, and I'm going to use my mistakes as a reference for everybody, because it doesn't matter if you've been driving 30 years or a year, everybody makes these mistakes. I know someone quite close to me who, after an accident a couple of months ago, didn't do the things he preached to me about. He's like, you should have done this, you should have done that, you didn't do them because you're an idiot and you're young and all that. But at the same time, he didn't do them either, even though he preached to me for months about how I should have done them. So I was a bit like, alright, and that's what gave me another idea for this topic. Also, big shout out to Skeggy Cruiser, my latest subscriber, one of the 5. I'm not very popular yet, but I will be soon. Thanks, Skeggy. Anyway, backwards. So, you know, there's my mistakes. When I had my accident, I'm going to say 2 years ago, because whenever I say 1.5 to 2, it always sounds weird. So from now on, it's 2. When I had my accident 2 years ago, these are the fundamental mistakes I made in the lead up to and the event. Number 1, I moved from the scene. Where the accident occurred, I'll probably insert a picture somewhere around here, but the accident occurred on a roundabout in Queensferry, North Wales. And when it all, like, obviously me and the other driver got out and yelled at each other a little bit. And then he didn't speak English very well, if at all. So he was like, oh, great bear, and all this. So I stupidly didn't like do anything else. I just said, alright, we'll go to Great Bear to get your details then, because he wasn't giving me anything concrete. So I was like, for fuck's sake, fine, we'll go to Great Bear and get your shit. So I left the scene of the incident without taking any photos of where the vehicles lay after the accident. Mistake number 1. I had photos, but the photos weren't from the scene. So it was a very... They were like, well, the photos are circumstantial and they won't be able to be used, and we'd love to be able to, but we can't, and all that. Second mistake, I didn't call the police. Rule 1. I should have made this rule 1. For anybody who gets into a vehicular incident, whether it be serious or just a bump, call the police for an incident. At least so you can get the incident number. if you've got that incident number, it's a concrete anchor for the insurance company to play against. Without that incident number, you are batting a ball against an invisible surface that is anywhere at any time and they don't know where. To put it mildly, they're basically just fucking batting the ball into nothingness and then waiting for it to hopefully come back. And it won't. It's simple. They just say it won't work, we can't bother. So, fundamental, phone the police as soon as you have an incident. More often than not, if you tell them you've had a vehicular incident, they will send an ambulance to you. You don't have to ask for it. They'll send, even if it's just like a paramedic vehicle, they'll send one out to you because you've been in a car accident, which I think is a bit nifty. So there's that. Make sure you phone the police. It's fundamental that you get them. Even if it's just a little fender bender, you know, a little bit of a dinged headlight, call them. It may seem stupid to you. In fact, I guarantee it'll seem stupid at the time, ringing the police for something so minor. But later on, you will kick, scream, and piss blood because of it. Because you didn't. So, gotta ring the police in those incidences. Moving on. This comes back to the helmet camera. Even though I was in a car, because I'm going to get into the accident details in a second. I was in a car, but I had an in-car camera that I hadn't fitted. Now, that camera would have proved gold if I'd had it. But being the dickhead I am, I didn't have it with me at the time. I didn't even have it in the car. It was in its bag at home. That would have proven my case 100%. I wouldn't have needed pictures, statements, anything. It would have been a quick call to the police, review the footage at the site, and say, he hit me, let's move on with the world and get my insurance sorted. But no. Dumb shit fucking retard I am, didn't have it in the fucking car. Other things you need to make sure you do, other than don't leave the scene, get the police, have a camera. Have a camera, obviously. If at all possible, make sure you get as many witness statements on the day. Trying to get hold of witness statements after something's happened from people who might only go through that area once or twice in a lifetime, you're out of luck, I'm afraid. I was very lucky. There were two people who work in the vicinity of where I work who were following me in my car, saw the whole thing happen and stepped forward a day to 2 days later to tell me they'd seen it happen, they were willing to give statements. This is the other thing. The insurance company then turned and said, oh, you can't use them as your witnesses because they work near you, therefore they know you, they recognised you. I'm like, yeah, they recognised me, big whoop. And you're like, but you see, that means they're biased. They're going to say that the lorry hit you on purpose to make your point. And I was like, well, no, they're going to tell it how they saw it because the lorry did hit me. So there was that. So statements, get as many as possible, and that's where the police comes into it. If you've got a police car there and somebody stops to give an official statement, then they can't argue an official statement because it's been taken by an unbiased party. Whether the party that gave it was biased or not, they can't debate. Well, they might be able to, but if the police report says statement taken from driver following vehicle was hit by lorry, you know, there's not going to be much they can say about it. So it's definitely a good idea. Alright, so we got don't leave the scene, taking photos, police, helmet camera, all that shit. So yeah, I made all of those mistakes, and I was lectured vigorously for months by relatives and friends about the stupidity of my actions. And then, as I was saying, one of my a close friend, shall we say, had an incident. He was hit by a car head on, and the first thing he didn't do was ring the police. They called relatives and friends and Dickheads. They called relatives, friends and other such, and because they were local and my friend wasn't, soon his entire family were there and they said, oh yeah, it's all his fault, don't worry, we'll all sort it out. As soon as they got home, story changed. Fuck did it change, big time on it. Even though my friend was stationary at the side of the road and the car had come over a verge and hit him head on and completely fucked up the front of his car, because there was no photographic evidence of the scene at the time of the incident. Ooh, fucking hell, that was close. Because there was no photographic evidence of how it happened or where it happened or when, and no statements and no police or anything, same mistakes I made. They couldn't go back to the scene because the car was written off. Well, not written off, but so badly damaged they couldn't use it for a week. Well, I think it was like 2-3 weeks. So they couldn't use the car. So that screwed them in ways they couldn't even comprehend. Because they couldn't go back and get the photographic evidence that they hadn't been moving. They'd in fact been stationary when hit. But fortunately for them, they were fully comp. Now that is the big battle. If you're fully comp, more often than not, they'll just repair your car to shut you up because you've paid an excessive premium for the service. And you're probably a lot older if you've got fully comp. But I am a skint fucker who needed third-party fire and theft. So when I went to my insurance company and said, listen, I've got all this proof, all this evidence, they basically stuck their thumb up their arse for 8 months, did nothing for me to help me with my problem, and then left me in the dark for another 2 months after the 8 months they'd sat around doing nothing, before I managed to get hold of them properly by tracking them down. And that's another thing, because they don't want to pay out, they won't answer their phones. Their claims department is basically null. You'll ring up and they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't deal with that complaint because it's your personal handler and all that shit. They'll say, we'll patch you through now, and then you'll get cut off. Or, oh, we're going to have to put you on hold for a couple of minutes before we can actually put you through on that one. So you'll say, okay, yeah, I'll go on hold for a couple of minutes. And you're into a 10-15 minute call and you're like, fuck, I've just been sitting here listening to music and it's not good music, it's shit. So it really did. My insurance company stiffed me because they didn't want to pay out on a case they didn't think they could win, despite the fact I had proof that he'd hit me. But because I'd made them fundamental mistakes, not going to the police, not contacting, those fundamental mistakes I've listed in the early bit of the video fucked me over. But the biggest problem was I didn't have a helmet camera or a camera car. Camera car? That's new. Oh fuck, I'm so tired. I've been up since 3 AM. Okay, they did not have a camera in their car. In my car. Fucking dipshit. Anyway. So yeah, didn't have a camera. Biggest fail. By far the biggest failing in that situation was the fact that I didn't have a camera. If I'd had a camera, I probably would have been alright. Lesson learned, and that's why you're watching my video. I've never done this corner on the bike. It's going to be interesting. Those yellow lines look slippery. It's a good thing I got my helmet camera roll. Alright, here we go. Yeah, we made it. So yeah, that's all I'm going to really say on it. Helmet cameras are must, because it would have solved everything that went wrong with the previous case. I would have gotten my car sorted out. I wouldn't have had to wait a year and a half for my compensation for my injuries, which, as you know from my previous videos, I'm still suffering from and probably always will. So, it's just the pros of buying £160, and that's a mid-range. I'm not talking a cheapo. If you get just a one that records AVI, doesn't even have to do HD, it's enough for a court to press charges and for you to get what you deserve. It far outweighs not buying it. To have that £100 in your account so you can go out and buy a little bit of shopping or go to the movies or on a date or whatever, or securing your goddamn future and having the ability to say, look, I have video proof of what happened to me and where, and then have your life sorted out, far outweighs the cons. It really does. I can't even begin to say how much it outweighs the cons. You just gotta do it. The shit I used to see when I didn't have a camera, now that I've got one, like I said this morning, the camera, it just fucking deters people from doing anything. Like, they see the camera before they see the bike. They're like, oh shit, camera. Oh, there's a bike under it. Okay. And that is the best thing in the world you can do. A deterrent and a capture of proof of what happens to you. Because if you're unconscious when you hit the deck, you don't really know what goes on around you afterwards. Quite a few motorcycle vloggers have mentioned this. Spicy 110, he had his big crash when a car pulled out on him. He wasn't recording it, but fortunately the situation came through for him and he's alright now. But again, the situation would have been 100 times better if his camera had been on. So yeah, I think I'll end this vlog here. I've bitched enough. So yeah, thanks for watching everybody. Tune in next time. Brit Ninja 88 signing off. Like and subscribe.